Hey crafty people! Welcome back to my channel, and in case you're new here, I'm Sarah, also known as Craft Nerd because I'm a nerd who loves to craft. I do paper crafting, card making, junk journaling, and mixed media art. Let's get crafting! Okay, so I think the thumbnail for this video was Waffle Flower Postage Collage, Do You Need All the Things? And I bought many of the things, not quite all of the things, but many of the things. And so in this video, I'm gonna talk about the stuff that I did get, give you some suggestions if you have been looking at this and are interested in possibly getting some or many of the things, and then give you some alternative ideas for how you can recreate this look if you don't have all the things. And let me preface this with, I have no affiliation with Waffle Flower. These were items I had seen, I think last year, and it's one that I kept going back to, going, I kind of want, maybe I'm gonna get it, and I wasn't sure. And then for this year, for my birthday splurge, I bought a whole bunch of the things. So let's go through, in case you're not familiar, what the Postal Collage collection does. And it creates faux postage stamps. And if you buy the die, or just use the stencils, you can create essentially a collage. Now these guys I haven't gone back and stamped, and they have a bunch of cute little stamps that will fit, that have, you know, amounts and cancellations and, you know, that sort of stuff that you can stamp on your faux stamps. So I'm gonna set those aside. Have not done that to these yet, and of course the dog wants out. So you've got the stamps, they've got dies, and I gotta go bring dogs in. So I bought the regular die, which actually comes with smaller piece dies as well, and the Slimline. Now this one doesn't come in either of those sets. It was a free gift that they sent with my purchase, but it cuts out, and I haven't used the Slimline yet. It cuts this out. And what's nice about this and the coordinating stencils is, if you've ever looked at a stamp, you've got your image in the center, but there's usually a white border around. So the stencils help preserve that white border while letting you color and create pretty things. So those are the dies, and then let's take a look real quick at the stencils. So they've got a bunch of layering stencils. I picked up a Christmas set. I think they had like a set that you could buy that had, I think these 3 layering stencil options, so the poinsettias, the gingerbread, and the snowman. And then I bought this one separate. And then they had Halloween and fall. And the fall one for the pumpkins actually has another layer that makes them into jack-o'-lanterns. So conceivably I could do one where instead of doing the ghosts, I did the jack-o'-lanterns. So that's an option. But so that's what, and they vary, like, most of these had like 4 stencils. The snowmen have only 2, and that's the one I'm gonna show you how to use in this video, just to give you an idea of how they work. They also sell stencils like this that's just the blocking for it, and I bought, but I have it put away I think somewhere, the one for the smaller size. So it lets you block out the sections, and then you can either do the die cutting first and then use it, or I can line up the die and die cut it out, and it'll keep, because it's blocked out so that there's space between. So those are the stencil options. This is the one I'm going to demo here in a sec. But I do want to talk about the do you need all the things before I demo this, and then demo my suggestions for you if getting these are not in your budget, or you want to get some but not all, that sort of stuff. We're going to talk about those. So bottom of my list for need to buys is obviously the stamps, especially if you've got some number stamps and cancellation stamps already in your stash. You can always use those. You don't absolutely need these. I got them because I liked the idea of having them perfectly scaled to go with the faux postage I'm creating. Next is the layering stencils. They're stinking cute. I really like them. Like, look at how cute these are. Like, how cute is that? And those and this one, and I really like them. But you can create your faux stamps without doing the stenciling like I did with these guys. So my two recommendations would to think, if you're thinking about shopping, is the block stencil and the dies. The dies make it super easy to get that cool postage stamp shape. And so that's what I like about them. And then these we can cut apart. And in fact, let's go ahead and I'll show you that. You can use scissors or your paper trimmer and just you could even tear them if you want a torn look. Because, yeah, it didn't quite get that as even as possible, but close enough. So there we go. We've got a whole bunch of Christmassy faux stamps. And you can use them all together or separately, however you want. You can use them as embellishments on other things. So I really like the fact that it gives us the nice little postage edge on them. And, you know, I may do a little trimming up to even those out a little bit. So I am glad I bought the dies. But you have some options if you don't want to buy the dies, because those are on the pricier. If you're being very, very budget conscious, the block stencils aren't too bad price-wise. And what the block stencils will allow you to do is to create a mask, you know, mask off the areas between. And then you can go in with decorative edge scissors, like the Fiskar has a postal one, or if you don't have a postal one but you've got like pinking shears or a scallop scissor, or my rotary trimmer has scallop blades and different kinds of blades for it that you can use to cut the squares apart to get close to the look of a stamp, like the fancy edges, and also maintain the white around the edges. But a little later in this video, I'm going to show you some ideas for creating your own, because you don't absolutely have to buy theirs. And then if you create your own, you can change your configuration. Now, if you want to have a look something like that, if you've got a postal die, you can, because I know Spellbinder's has one that does like the postage stamp shape, die cut something out like that. You could then take a hole punch. So what you could do is take a ruler, and I'd probably go like here and here and along here first. So let's do that. I take a ruler, draw a faint line going this way. Come on, straight. This way, which is close but not perfect. And then you can go through and do and then I would take scissors and cut it out, and then do the same thing along here, and you've got that faux stamp look. I think this one needs like another partial one over here. Let's alternatively, you could also cut out the rectangles, leaving space along the sides, and punch along it to create your faux stamp look. So if all you've got is a hole punch and a piece of paper, you can get the look. It'll take you a bit of time, and it's going to be a bit fussy, but it can be done. All right, so now let me show you how the layering stencils work. Then I'm gonna show you, I'm gonna use the Waffle Flower stencil, and I'm also gonna discuss creating your own stencil and use that to create some faux stamp collages. Okay, so next I want to show you one of the layering stencils that I got that go with the Postal Collage dies. So I've got a piece die cut out already, and this one's Snowman, and it's number 421766. And it's a 2-part one. Some of the other ones are like 3 and 4 parts. So I figured this would be an easier option. Now there's a line here, if you haven't already cut it out, that you can line it up with the edge of your paper. So if you're, you know, I've already cut it out, but if I hadn't, there's a little scored line to show where a 5.5 by 4 1/4 piece of paper would line up with this, and we're not entirely straight. This is where it ends up being a little fiddly to get everybody exactly where they need to be. There we go. And so we're just gonna go ahead and stencil, and I'm gonna use Tumbled Glass Distress Oxide ink and just go to town stenciling. Now I'm going to come back in and do brown for the arms and black for the faces on our guys. So some Scorched Timber Distress Oxide, and I've got a little brush. And for this, I'm using Black Soot Distress ink because I don't have Black Soot Distress Oxide. And just trying to be very careful I don't go over onto the blue. All right, let's peel this off. Those are kind of too stinking cute. All right, next up, we've got the next layer, and just gonna make sure everything's lined up properly. And there are little indent lines again that show you like where the snowmen are supposed to line up. All right, that are kind of hard to see, so excuse me if my head's in the way. All right, so again, I'm gonna do black for the coal buttons. You of course could do a variety of different colors. I'm just keeping this one kind of simple. Let's do some carved pumpkin for our orange noses. I want to do something. I'm trying to think what I have. I'm going to use some Luster Wax Ivory. And for this, I'm just going to use my finger. But the nice thing is with the stencil, it means I can be a little more targeted in my application. Ta-da! And there's a nice little shimmer on our snowflake. So yeah, that's what it looks like when you get the layering stencils, and I have a whole bunch, as I think I showed at the beginning of this video. I don't know, it's been a while since I filmed the first part of this video just because of how things work out. Next, I am going to show you how you can use the die and the basic stencil to create your own custom faux stamps. So that's what we're going to do next, but I want to go clean these off, especially since I used the luster wax on this one, and I'll be right back. Okay, so I've got my die cut piece and my stencil laid out, and again, as I said earlier, if you just bought the stencil, you could just do this over a piece of paper that you can then cut using a variety of methods to create a faux stamp. But I'm gonna start by adding a layer of tea dye distress ink to get rid of all this white, because we're gonna go a little, I think, grungy on these. Although I still haven't decided what theme I want to go for focal image. Now I've got a script stamp, and this is Ledger Script CMS 241 by Tim Holtz and Stampers Anonymous. And I'm gonna grab archival ink in Vintage Photo because my next step is gonna involve water, or wetness. It's a little darker than I was going for, so I'm gonna grab a scratch piece of paper and stamp off before I kind of stamp there, because again, we're going just for some background interest, so it doesn't necessarily need to be complete coverage. All right, next step is I'm going to take a piece of plastic, sorry about glare, and I am just going to add some ink to it. So let's do a little Vintage Photo. Just a dab of scorched timber. Maybe some salvage patina. Just a dab or two of Uncharted Mariner. Now I'm gonna spray this. Kind of make sure it's broken up a bit. And then what I'm gonna do is tap it on my faux stamps. Being very careful with using my heat gun because I don't want to melt my stencil or the mat it's on. All right, so I'm just gonna lift off where it's got like a lot. And next I'm gonna do, let's do a few more dots. We're creating a background, so I'm kind of looking for the dots to be not super noticeable. And I also think I want to do a few dots of, let's go Vintage Photo. I'm just gonna add that to a block, do that, and grab my brush, which seems to have disappeared. I'm gonna hunt that down later. We'll just use the fan brush. Few dots like that. Let's do a couple dots with scorched timber, and then we'll do a little with the blue because I love my blues. And I got a little doggin. And now a little bit of Uncharted Mariner, just because why not? So let's also do just some straight up water, I think. Another block, put some water on that. Do that. Let's see, how are we doing? I want a few bigger spots of water, so I'm gonna use my Distress sprayer. Give it a second to reactivate the ink. There we go. All right. I need to pull out some stamps to create focal images on these guys. So once I figure out what I want to do for those, I will be back. Okay, so I pulled out some bugs. These are from Tim Holtz Stampers Anonymous Entomology, which is CMS 328. And I am just going to stamp all of them using my VersaFine black ink because I know that's going to stamp nicely since I'm not putting this in my Misty. So we're just going to go around and stamp some bugs. It's a little on the big side, but close enough. Now I'm going to grab the Waffle Flower Postage Collage Fall stamps because it's got mounts for the stamps, and we'll add mounts to our various stamps. We've also got cancellation lines. Those I don't want to be quite as intense. So I think I may use the Vintage Photo archival ink. Stamp those on some of our stamps. Well, actually all of them, but there's two different ones, so we'll use the two different. And let me grab from Field Notes CMS 396. I'm gonna grab a received stamp. I have correspondence, but the received stamp's a lot bigger in correspondence, and I want to go with a smaller one. And I'm trying to decide if I want to go with a contrasting color, like a red. Actually, you know what? Let's go blue. And let's use Uncharted Mariner Distress ink. And I'm gonna do it kind of wonky. And because we use the mask, we're not going to have it stamped anywhere but on the stamp part, like so. Ooh, I really like how those came out. I think I'm going to have a lot of fun playing with the die and this stencil to create my own faux stamps. Because look at those. Those are so cool. And now all I have to do is cut down the middle of those, and I've got a bunch of faux stamps that can be added to projects. Ooh, I'm gonna have a ton of fun playing with this. I love how these came out. So much fun. Okay. Let me have a bit of a cleanup, and I'll show you what we've done and give you some final thoughts on the Waffle Flower Postage Collage stamps and stencils. Okay, so I said I would give you some ideas for how you could create your own stencil if you did not have the one by Waffle Flowers. So pretty much you can do it out of regular paper, but it's not going to stand up to too many uses if you use regular paper. So I've got a piece of Yupo, which you can make stencils out of, and I actually did for this month's mystery craft. Last month's? I don't know. One of the mystery crafts recently we did stencils from Yupo. And I also got a piece of just acetate, and this was came with a stamp set because I can still see faintly the images of the stamps that were on the plastic. And you have a couple options if you're using Yupo, and I've cut these down to 5.5 by 4 1/4 so I could do a whole sheet kind of thing. So there's a couple ways that you can go about doing it. One is with a ruler, a pencil, and a craft knife, and you can just go through and use your ruler and pencil to draw. I'm going to leave about 1/4 of an inch through everything. So if I do 1/4 inch all around, and sorry if there's glare from the ruler, but this is the best way for me to do anything like this because it's see-through, it's got 1/4 inch lines, so yeah. And then just decide what size squares you want. So we can do, that would give us a 1 inch square here if I go like so. Trying to keep things straight. And then you can do, at this point, another square or a rectangle, and that square does not look very square. Let me try this again and make sure it's actually square. Square-ish. And then you could do a rectangle here. Maybe do it to there, and then go down. Say inch. Another square. Let's see, how tall is this section? This section is 1 inch, so we'd have to do a 1 inch square to do that as a square, but that's fine. Maybe another, let's see, let's mark our 1/4 inch. Maybe 1.5 inches going this way, so another rectangle. God, that is too big. Let's try doing 1.5 inches square. So there's another potential stencil configuration, and what you would do is you would go in and cut out all of the squares using not that ruler, Got a smaller metal ruler. Alright, I'm not going to cut them all off on screen because that will drive all of us crazy. Just try and fix that corner so it's a little straighter. And that corner. So I will cut the rest of them out and show you what it looks like when it's all done, but you do not want to see me doing this on camera. But that will give you a stencil you can use. The downside with U-bow is you can't see through it, but because I cut it out to 5.5 by 4.25, it'll line up perfectly if I cut down a piece of paper to that size. The other option is to take dies and use those to cut out, and it's kind of hard to see my acetate. Let's see if I can find a piece of plain paper I can put down. That might make it a little easier to see. Not much, but it's a little easier for me to see. So with this, you can just go around, and again, I'm going to try and do about a 1/4 inch between everything and lay out square and rectangle dies in a configuration that you like. And I would recommend using some low-tack tape to hold everybody in place. And let's see what we can fit over here. That one. And maybe this little bitty guy. Don't know that the spacing's perfect, but it's close enough. So, and because, I only have a certain number of dies of a size that I'd want to use on this, I'm going to have to cut, move them around, come back kind of thing. I can maybe do this one. So I'm going to go ahead and do that off camera and then show you what our homemade stencils look like when I'm done. Okay, so here are the results I got. I finished cutting out. This was the one done with the dies, and don't know that I got everything quite as straight as it could be. And I went ahead and just did a quick inking of it so you could see what it looks like. So there's that one. And yeah, I got a little close on a few of them, but I should be all right because I can just cut them apart using my Whisker postal scissors. And then this is the one out of U-bow. I did have a slight mishap, so you can kind of see over here we got a little wonky. I may just put a little tape on that, so that's the one I hand cut out. And this line probably needs to be straightened up a bit. So you can create your own stencils for creating your own postage collages. So those are the stencils we created. Here's the one I did on camera using the layering stencils from Waffle Flower, and I think they're really freaking cute. And I'm glad I got them, but you don't absolutely need them, because here's the one we did on camera. making our very own postage stamps, and I used the die and the masking stamp to keep the, you know, areas around clean. And I really love how this came out. I liked it so much. I went and played some more and did some more bug stamps using the Slimline. And then I showed you some stuff I had done previously using the stencils from Waffle Flowers, and I showed you how you can cut it apart. So instead of having the full collage, you can have your individual stamps. So that's those guys. And then we've got all of these that are the stencils that I have purchased. That's just using the plain stencil to ink some backgrounds, and I need to stamp on those. Did a whole bunch of the poinsettia ones. Did some more of those. This is, I haven't die cut it yet, and so it's just using the layering stencils. The same with these guys. And this one, and this one, and that one. So my final thoughts. I really like the layering stencils Waffle Flower has made to go with their dies. I think they're too stinking cute. So I'm definitely glad I got them, and I definitely will use them. But I think what I'll use more is the plain stencil and the coordinating dies. I love how these came out so much. I had so much fun making them. I so want to make a whole heck of a lot more. That may be a mass make video. Although I don't know how well that's going to work mass make wise, but yeah, really enjoy it. So if you're on a budget, my number 1 and 2 buys would be the die and the coordinating like plain stencil, because you can just go to town creating whatever kind of faux stamps you want using those. If it's not in the budget, you can do it using, you know, a homemade stencil. And you know what, let me pull out my Fiskar Postal scissors and just give you a quick demo. And then you can just cut them out using so there you go. It's pretty darn good. So that is always an option. If buying any of these is not in the budget, there's your low cost option. And again, you could use pinking shears if you've got those, if you don't have a stamp pair of decorative scissors or other decorative scissors. Or I've got like a perforation blade for my paper trimmer, and I could use that and then tear them apart, and that'll give you similar to a stamp look. So that's your option if you're not in a position to buy the Waffle Flower products. But my recommendation, if you are thinking about it or thinking about what you should save your money up for buying, is the base die and the standard stencil that goes with the base die for blocking off, because then the sky's the limits, and it's just a little bit easier than making your own stencil, quite frankly. Or alternatively, you know, the die is the most expensive of the items. Just get the stencil, and then you don't have to go through the hassle of making your own stencil, and you can cut them apart using whatever you have at hand. Next in my, you know, allocation of purchasing resources would be some of their stamps, just because their amounts are sized so perfectly to go with these. So if you're making this purchase, then stamps. Otherwise, you don't necessarily need the stamps. As you can see on here, I used some stamps from my stash for, you know, the received stamp, and I know I've got, you know, number stamps and postage cancellation stamps from other stamp sets, so not really necessary. And then probably bottom of my list, although not because I don't love them, is the stencils that the layering stencils that create these guys, because I love them. They're stinking cute and adorable, but with this stencil and this die, I can create whatever I want. So you don't have to have these to create your faux stamps. They're just kind of nice, and I really like how they come out. So that's all for today. If you enjoyed this video, please do all the things that lets YouTube know you enjoyed the video. Like, subscribe, hit the notification bell, leave me a comment down below. Thanks for joining me, and happy crafting!